Jenna found Jeff to be unresponsive. Jeff never did the little things for Jenna. And Jenna disliked the sound Jeff made when he ate soup. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, aka TNG, Season 4, Episode 25, entitled In Theory, written by Joe Menosky and Ronald D. Moore, legends, directed by another legend, Patrick Stewart. What?
Yeah.
This is June 1st, 1991. Where were you? Oh, and everybody, by the way, special thanks to Tara Pollen and Michael Bazarewski for sponsoring this episode. Michael Bazarewski, or pronounced the Polish way, I believe would be Bazarewski. Tara Pollen and Michael Bazarewski, thank you very much for sponsoring this episode. We really appreciate you. What's up, Sirach? How you doing today?
I'm doing great, in theory.
All right. So first things first. Patrick Stewart I think this is his directorial debut. We just had one last week, right?
Yeah, with David Livingston, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and these are heavy hitters. Patrick Stewart, I wonder how much more he went on to direct, because I don't know him as a director, essentially,
Right.
as much as I would know, let's say, Jonathan Frakes or even LeVar Burton.
Well, he directed after this 5 episodes of Deep Space Nine.
Right.
No,
No way.
I couldn't even pull that way.
No way.
He's only done a total of 5 episodes of Next Generation, no other Star Trek, and one other show called Hollywood Update. That's it. So your instincts are correct. This was just him dipping his toes in, having fun, doing it for a few episodes, and then moving on.
Yeah. Okay, well, kudos to him for getting in that director in training program that we were hearing about with Rick Berman. This is, I guess, another person that Rick Berman churned out during the process of his reign, by giving opportunities to people to get their first chance at directing, which we've actually seen on be the case, for example, on Lower Decks with some of the people that got chances to direct those animated episodes, right?
Right. Yeah. Storyboard artists. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's actually seems to be another Star Trek tradition, a behind the scenes tradition of giving opportunity to people. We saw in Deep Space Nine as well, Michael Piller giving a lot of opportunity to freelance writers to submit scripts. So it really is indicative of the overall theme of Star Trek itself being a platform through which talent is cultivated and also given an opportunity, which is, very much similar to the show and what we see embodied in the moral virtues of Starfleet, right?
It's a great point. Yeah. Star Trek, the show, embodied the morality and, kind of that moral compass of Star Trek that we see on TV. Because, they give people chances. They're about lifting others up. That's a really good point. And a lot of them went on to have very illustrious directing careers, like David Livingston and Jonathan Frakes. Roxanne Dawson is still out there working. She's hustling. Robert Duncan McNeil. My God, that guy's killing it right now. Yes, so many are still doing a lot of directing. In fact, are almost primarily directing and or producing.
Absolutely. And I also remember Tim Russ and LeVar Burton also, but I don't know if they got their start, but I do remember them directing episodes on a frequent basis. So
yeah, I don't know if they got their starts in Star Trek. They may have. One of my favorite directors, though, however, is Mr. Tim Russ, because he's got this passion, this excitability, that I've only seen like from a couple of other directors. They all have it, but a lot of them internalize it, or a lot of them are just too frayed at the edges from not sleeping and working so hard. But Tim just gets like, he'll just be like, "Oh yeah, man, that's a good shot. Oh man," like he gets really into it. I love it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've experienced the same thing, and you're right. You nailed the impersonation. It's that kind of feedback, live and right on the scene. So yeah, he's very enthusiastic, which is crazy because you're like, you have him mentally pegged as this Vulcan, right? And then he gets into this mode of really exciteness and emotion. And you're like, okay, all right, I see you. But back to this episode, there
Yeah.
wasn't anything particularly remarkable about what I saw as far as the shot selection. Seemed pretty standard. Just coverage and basic, get the shots done.
Right. This is the kind of episode that I was thinking for David Livingston when we talked to him last week. I was like, this is the kind of, I don't want to call it like a training wheels episode, but a safe one. A director can really, cut their teeth on it. It's not too crazy. You don't have to like worry about crazy special effects and all these other things. Just, it's pretty straightforward. You can test it out. You can get to know it. This is a perfect first episode for a directorial debut.
Yeah, and based on the performance that I see Brent Spiner give in this episode, which I'm pretty sure that Patrick Stewart encouraged a lot of the comedic notes that Brent Spiner hit. Because I'm sure he could have said, "No, don't play it like that. Instead, do it like this," or made adjustments. But there were a lot of comedic moments where Data, for example, she's like, "Don't look at me," and he was like, "Okay, well, I'll just look the other way then."
Yeah, he hammed it up just a tiny bit more than we've ever seen him hamming it up. Like he gave it a little extra Brent. There was a little bit of Brent in that Data, more so than usual.
Yes. And that's why actually I thought this would be attributed to some kind of anomaly that was also paralleled with this B story, right? So I thought perhaps that slight Brent infusion into Data would be explained by, because of the anomalies, certain people's behaviors would be accentuated and whatnot, and maybe even love in the air or whatnot, that kind of a explanation for the uncharacteristic love story of Data, right? So I thought there would be more to that, but it was actually really a love story. Like they were like really trying to do that, which was something I thought was great because we haven't seen Data involved romantically since Tasha.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the follow up in his own personal life because I feel like he's only about Starfleet. Actually, he said he's only about Starfleet when she said to him, she's like, "Kiss me, Data. What were you thinking?" And he's like, well, in that particular moment, I was reconfiguring the warp field parameters. And I'm like, dude, this dude's like, he's the perfect employee you want, right? He's at he's at the bar drinking, but he's actually doing the algorithms and you know what I mean?
Thinking about feline supplement number 27 for Spot. But I did not remember this episode being so funny. I was laughing.
Me too.
Throughout because it was so. I took. This is the record for the most notes I've ever taken for an episode. I've never taken this many notes because there are just so many funny moments and lines that I just didn't want to miss. There were so many times like Data in his own way is freaking adorable in this episode. He's just so adorable. And this poor girl, she's kind of partially helpless, partially still healing, but also as Riker, we could talk about Riker later, but Riker was freaking hilarious. As Riker said, look, she's an adult. She knows what she's getting into. You do your thing. Let her worry about her thing. But Data killed it. He just killed me. I was laughing the whole time. The writing was brilliant.
The writing was brilliant, and that's what I was going to talk about was Ronald Moore. You know, this story wasn't particularly um, in the realm of science fiction, right?
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, this is some dilemma. There's a war about to break out. We need to negotiate this treaty between these two people. This wasn't, the science fiction part was the nebula that they were flying through, which was not
just a minimal B
yeah,
plot. It literally could
yeah,
have been, the B
yeah,
plot could have been O'Brien and Keiko get into a fight. Doesn't
yeah,
matter. It's anything.
yeah, yeah. It was pretty irrelevant and uncircumstantial until the very end when the whole thing breaks down. But um, so it wasn't carried by that. It was actually carried by very good dialogue, which needs to be credited to Joe Manosky and Ronald Moore, who really laid out a story through the conversation. Like, there were moments when I was feeling like this is what it's like, Data. like, like you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. There is, it's there's no right answer, um, and when Data had that moment where he realized, so you didn't want me to go back to painting, like you said, it's just like no, and that was the moment where it's like, yes, that's the way. That's an accurate portrayal of the communication gaps and differences between two people when they're involved in a relationship. It becomes that, and you're like, you're like, you said this. You said don't buy me a gift for our anniversary.
I know.
So I didn't buy.
I hate it so much. It's like,
so you're trying to actually read tea leaves and stuff, and so it's a lot more complex than Data thought it would.
Yeah, Data's got to have like subroutines upon algorithms upon more subroutines just to understand when, somebody says, I'm fine, watch those eyebrows. If they say, oh, I'm fine, cool. If they say, I'm fine, oh, you're in trouble. But yeah, he says, I should not have resumed my painting. And she says, no. Despite your suggestion that I continue to. And she says, exactly. And he goes, I have much to learn.
Yes, you got much to learn. You got much to learn.
Much. Too good.
On a personal note, when I was going through my own marital issues, I reached out to my dad and I said, "Hey, Dad, like I don't know what's going on here. I can't figure this out. We just keep arguing, and I don't know what's going on here. Like, am I wrong?" And he said to me,
"You're always wrong."
Well, that was the end, yes. But he was like, "Son, I've been married 3 times, and I still haven't figured it out." Right?
So he gave you the Picard advice.
Yeah, yes. He gave me the Picard advice. Like, I'll let you know when I figure this thing out. Because it's complicated, and this episode, like I said, this is a callback to Data and his relationships, which is a baseline of the story. No mention of Tasha Yar, who I kind of thought I would get enamored there somewhere, maybe even in the counselor scene with Troy. Maybe like there's a moment there where he acknowledges, I've only felt this kind of way, or or
the next day she says, "What was that? I learned it from Tasha. It's called the Tasha twist."
Yeah. Something like that. Some kind of NAM would have been nice, But when I saw this ensign, what was her name? Lieutenant Jenna
DeSora.
Yeah. I thought Data's got a type, because
that's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? Because she has the same hair color and kind of style, like the dirty blonde
build,
hair.
Yeah.
So I was like, looks like Data has a thing for hot blondes.
We got to watch that now. Every new kid. Well, for example, Ensign McKnight might be his type. That was the ensign of the week. Let me see if I can find her.
Yeah, I saw her as well. I wrote that down somewhere here.
Come on. Yeah, this is definitely another Data type right here. Data's like, Ensign McKnight, Jenna and I are no longer a couple.
Yeah.
What say you and I try?
Yeah, yeah. She better watch out.
Is that Ensign McKnight character?
Is that an action figure?
Oh, no, that's Tess Allenbury.
Oh.
It's another ensign. Anyway.
Wow, she got an action figure out of it?
Somebody else did. Ensign. Oh, no, yeah, it does say Ensign McKnight.
Okay.
TNG Season 4. Wow. It's only $85, and there are only 3 left. Made by Necessary Outlet.
Wow.
Actually, yeah.
We'll have to ask our friend Brian Volkweiss for one of the new Ensign McKnights when he remakes all the Star Trek stuff.
I know Brian McKnight, but anyway.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I love this. I love this episode. It kind of just went well, you know. And
it's a great watch.
It felt like a filler episode. Like I was cool with it. I was like, okay, this is nothing circumstantial is going to happen. Nothing major is happening. This is just like a filler episode. And really, what got me on the hook was I knew from the beginning that this was a train wreck waiting to happen. So I was sitting.
I know, because yeah, they no bones about it. They made it very clear, like she just broke up. She's kind of messy because she keeps almost getting back with her ex, and she's like, Data, you know, I might get back with him, and he says, oh well, you've told me to tell you, you know, whatever he says, you don't like this and that and whatever. And then you see that they have this cute relationship where she looks to him for comfort. But yeah, she's kind of in a rocky period in her life. Yeah, it's a train wreck waiting to happen.
Yeah, she's emotionally vulnerable, and because Data is very logical and practical and, you know, robotic in his responses, it had the feeling for her of somebody who was kind. And she mentioned how kind and sweet he was.
He's very patient. He doesn't take offense to anything.
Right. And he's present, which was another thing. He's like, he's going to be there if he says he's going to be there. So he's reliable. And
certainly not controlling or deceptive.
Right. Right. So there was a lot of things, and, you know, he engaged in a lot of that chit chat and was holding her accountable, which is like what another friend would do. Like, but you said, you know, don't let you drink, and, you know, you trying to drink, and I'm not going to let you do it on my watch. It's kind of a level of accountability that a good friend does, right? It's like, hey, you asked me to not let you do this, or, you know, if I ever get in this situation, to tell me the truth. So here's the truth, you know, and that's what good friends do. And so I felt like, yeah, Data was being a good friend in that moment in the beginning, in the opening of the scene. She was attracted to it because, you know, she's in a vulnerable state emotionally. And I was actually looking for the word rebound.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I didn't hear it. I was looking for, because obviously, you know, it's the 24th century, so they're not using those kind of terminology, I guess, anymore. But
not in this Star Trek series. They don't use current vernacular, but
right. But I was waiting. I was like, are they going to address? I was waiting for Riker or somebody to say, bro, she you know, right now you're perfect. You're catching a rebound, you know?
Dude, the look on Riker's face, man.
Yeah, we got it. That's a whole segment. So we have to like literally break and go into that, because I have a whole section of notes for that.
Yeah. Well, but before we do that though, there was a lot of, you know, there is a conversation about that, like how she had the vulnerability there. And 6 weeks, you know, depending, some people 6 weeks is plenty of time. And for other people, they need a year. You know, it's really just, it's kind of a personal thing of, you know, how certain people react to certain things. She doesn't seem like she was ready to fully move on. But what he did was he provided the things that she thought she needed. And it kind of felt to me like, and I think this is what they're trying to convey, this was like a fantasy. She was playing house. he was providing the things that she thought she wanted in a mate, and she was convincing herself, oh my God, he's perfect. He tends to my need. He's attentive. He, can do whatever I want. He's calm and doesn't control me or manipulate me. He's honest. Just everything. But then she kind of grew up and realized, wait, there's no real future in this. It was like playing into a fantasy almost, right?
Yeah, but he was also, he was being there for her in these kinds of moments, right? So
Yeah.
he's somebody that she was confiding in about her relationship with this Jeff guy in the beginning. So that opening conversation kind of established that there was dialogue prior to this in other moments when they were working together that she told him about this relationship, right? So it's like we're picking up on their friendship. And so when he's there for her in that moment, then we get to the scene where there are playing instruments in the kind of
Yeah.
orchestra that they were performing for everybody. Um, and she felt unsure of herself and like, I was offbeat and I missed my notes and this. And he was like, no, I don't think anybody noticed those subtle nuances. And you did wonderful. And I think people really enjoyed it. He was he was uplifting and encouraging, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
It's so funny. Yeah,
He could have easily
throughout
said the opposite and said, "Actually, I was listening, and you were 10%, 10 decimals off."
he's
Or
your theory is correct. You were off. In fact, this may be the worst you've done in 3 years by my calculations, or something like that. And she'd be like, "Oh my God!" But like everything that Data said in this, you could translate into regular guy speak, and I kind of did that in my notes. Like, what did he say? She said my tempo was off. I ruined the coda, the phrasing, the breathing. And then he basically said, I mean, what he said was very verbose and data-like, but really what he said was, hey, we'll work it out together, but don't worry, the audience didn't notice anything. You were great, right? That's the perfect answer. But he said it in his funny Data way, but in a way that it was close enough. That's what was so cute about it. We recognized it. We're like, he's saying that. He's saying the perfect thing that somebody wants to hear, and it's probably honest, coming from Data. And that's what was so great about it, was we would recognize what he's saying, even though he said it in his own, vernacular.
And once again, he made a choice, a calculation to deliver information to her in that way. And that's what we all can do in our lives, right? It's like we can all make that choice that Data made in that moment. For example, Data could have said, actually, you're correct. You were at 56 beats per minute, and our tempo was at 62 beats per minute.
Or he could have even just been like, you are no better or worse than ever. And that still sounds like rough. You know what I mean? That's still a little sandpapery.
Exactly. So he made a choice to soften the blow, to make a uplifting kind of character building statement, to give a hopeful outlook on the situation, to ease her anxiety about what the audience may have perceived. So he did a lot of that in that conversation. It's subtle, it's not much, but this is what, is attractive about anybody, so somebody is going to be attracted to a person that knows how to do positive reinforcements, knows how to give advice without being critical or seeming like they're putting you down, but more like inspirational advice to keep you encouraged and keep you engaged and try to maybe even spark farther development in whatever direction you're going into. So yeah, I think there was things about what Data was doing that was attractive to somebody who is in a vulnerable state specifically, and also to anybody who has those kinds of self-consciousness or feelings of insecurities. And when you have somebody reinforcing you and giving you positive words, that's good. We need to all do that. We need to all be aware of that. Which I think, again, same point, Picard was aware of that when he refused to give advice, right? Because he's saying, I could say stuff that'll discourage you,
Yeah.
or I could say something that might encourage you falsely and get your heart broken, right? So he's like, I don't even.
He's like, I don't want that pressure, man. That responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take our break real quick. And by the way, that was an excellent point, Sirach Lofton.
Yeah. That's right.
See, I'm practicing my positive reinforcement too.
Oh, very positive.
I hope it was convincing. I don't know.
It's good enough.
Felt weird. Anyway, we'll take a quick break, everybody. We'll be right back on the seventh rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule with Sirach, the game changer Lofton.
Hello.
All right. Here are the trivioids of the episode, and they go a little something like this. Jenna bumped into Jeff in the turbo lift again. Oops. Jenna objected to the fact that Jeff seemed unwilling to set aside sufficient time for her. Jenna found Jeff to be unresponsive. Jeff never did the little things for Jenna. Jenna disliked the sound Jeff made when he ate his soup. Data took an interest in romantic historical figures 6 weeks ago. Keiko O'Brien plays the oboe or whatever that was. Miles O'Brien leaves his socks on the floor every night. Data kisses Jenna in the torpedo bay.
Yeah.
Plot twist, Data asks Geordi for advice on women, and Data and Jenna enjoy some Calaman sherries. All right. Yeah, Data kissed her in the torpedo bay. That was weird.
Oh, yeah. I wrote that down too. I guess we have both the six. He says, Lieutenant DeSora gave me what could be considered a very passionate kiss in the torpedo bay. And I was like, you got kissed in your torpedo bay. Huh?
Yeah, he sure did. Passionately, though. That's the key. All right. We've delayed it long enough. So I got to get into Riker here because the look on his face was so seedy, was so horny that he might as well just be like, hey, text me after. I want to hear the details, bro.
Yeah.
Like he was so into it. He was so down for it. And then when he said, what was it? There was a moment where, okay. He says, you'll find that the rewards are far greater than simple friendship. And Data says, how far, sir? He says, that's what I'm hoping you're going to find out. I'm like, Riker, you are so naughty. What are you, 19?
Yeah.
He's like, all the way. Giggity goo.
I was like, oh my God. No, Riker. He basically was telling her, he was like, text her an eggplant emoji and see what she does.
Yeah. He's like, and then what happened? Yeah.
I was like, Riker, you literally only think with one part of your body. It's unbelievable. And
the look in his eye was just freaking amazing.
He got more happy than for himself. And I'm like, bro, I've never get that happy for somebody else getting laid.
No.
Like he was like, tell me more.
Oh,
he lit up like a proud parent. Which and that was funny. His advice was like, do it. Basically do it, right?
Yeah.
And basically almost take advantage of the fact that she's in this state. That's what was creepy to me about it.
He did border on that.
Right? He was saying, no, she's totally in a rebound, she's in rebound mode. This is the perfect time. She doesn't know, she'll date anybody and you'll get right in there. And I'm like, whoa, chill out, Riker. You're like, it looked predatory to me. You know what I mean? That's not. Yeah,
it did, especially with that big giant grin on his face where he's like, yeah. But I will say,
his line was,
he did.
She's obviously decided to take the chance. So he's like, bro, you've got consent. And it's like, yeah, but that could also be conceived and construed, which Troy mentions in her discussion as, taking advantage of somebody in an emotionally vulnerable state. You see that she's,
and as a friend, you might want to pump the brakes on that. You might want to say, well, I will say though, in typical Star Trek fashion, they kind of softened the landing a little bit, where he does kind of say basically like, look, she's an adult. She knows what she's doing. She's decided to take the chance. It's not really up to you to be like, no, you don't know what's best for you. Let me tell you what's best for you. She's an adult. She can say, I want to make a mistake. I know it's a mistake. I want to do it anyway. It was still a little surprising, though.
It was just borderline. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't all the way there, but it could have been less predatory had he not had that big ass grin on his face. Like go. Like he looked like like when you're cheering on the jousting, at the big.
So bad. It would almost have been better and even funnier if Riker didn't say a word through that whole scene, but he just had that giant shit-eating grin, and Data saying, "Sir, you think I should?" And he's just like, and he just keeps like, and then finally Data says, "I will assume from your grin that you think I should go for it." And he's like,
you got me. But they wrote the characters well because they were indicative of their personalities. I felt like Riker. What else is Riker going to do? He's going to say, "Go for it, get laid," whatever you want to say. That's his MO. We know it. We've seen it over and over again, so we're not surprised by it.
And why was the first guy he went to Geordi?
Oh yeah, that's exactly
what he should be giving Geordi advice.
Yeah, at this point,
real.
When Wesley's words keep resonating. Wesley laid a curse like a the curse of West.
Your idea of a fun Saturday night is a good book.
Yes. Those words keep echoing throughout the seasons, even long after he's gone. Because here in this moment, you see Geordi, he gets awkward even just talking about this subject. So he has no, he's like, well, this, and I don't know, and then he finally is just like, you know what, just my advice is to ask somebody else for advice, and I'm like, that's good advice because we know, and now at least you're admitting yourself, know that you know nothing about.
Guinan would have been great, but then even Guinan kind of balked at it. She was kind of like, and Picard didn't really want to give advice. Troy did kind of. He didn't ask Worf or Crusher.
She wasn't saying no, but she was leaning no.
Mm-hmm.
Troy was leaning no, like, I don't think it's a good thing because you're going to get yourself in a situation that you don't know, if you don't know if you'll want to get out of. But Patrick Stewart made the right call. He was like, what did he say?
He said, "My name's Paul, and this is between y'all." That's what he said.
He says, "I'm happy to offer I'm happy to offer advice on understanding women. When I have some, I'll let you know."
At first, he was trying to scurry away, dude. He's like, "Oh God, he got me." Okay, I know what you want.
Yeah. I don't know. This episode had me writing a lot of the lines down too. So that to me tells me when a good episode is. Yeah, when an episode is well written, it forces you to write the lines down, and or write what the scenes are happening. What you're visually seeing.
Oh no, wait! He did ask Worf too. That was hilarious because Worf said, "If she were mistreated, I would be very displeased, sir." And then Data walks away, and then he goes, "I understand." He's like, "Oh wait, those guys just kill me." I mean, the writing is getting so good because now we know who the characters are. They've done the work ahead of time, so we know who these characters are, and now we could just drop them into funny situations.
Yeah, and Worf, to speak more to Worf, he's like, Klingons conquer what they desire. But so they gave us a very good kind of view of character-wise. Worf said what we expect Worf to say. Geordi, he doesn't know anything. And it's funny because Geordi, he says, uh, this can be a little complicated. And it's funny because Geordi is the guy who handles the most complicated things, right? It's like he's fixing the warp core, he's got the engines
Yep.
doing this, he's rerouting power from this place to that place and finding this and doing all that. So he's the king of complicated, and he's like, I don't want to touch this.
Now,
So
what is
yeah,
the
I thought it was
Spartan?
well written.
What is the Spartan nature of Data's room? I don't even know what. I need to look that word up. But it was also funny when Jenna apparently is messy in her room, and I don't remember what Data's line was exactly, but he said basically he was like, "Oh, it looks like you haven't changed the way you look." Oh, but the funniest moment was when Data pretended to be mad at her. He's like, "Perhaps it is you that has something wrong."
Yeah, he
Oh yeah, perhaps there is something wrong with you. That was, don't tell me how to behave. You're not my
not my
mother.
mother. And then he repeated, he's like, what? You're not my mom.
Or yeah, then
uh,
because that was the scene where he comes in thinking, all right, clearly he read a new subroutine and he puts it,
yeah,
so he's like showing up, he's a
yeah,
you remain as aesthetically pleasing as the day we met. He's like, I'm the most fortunate sentient being in the galaxy or something like that. He's just
yeah.
uh, he's
He's
trying
laying
so
it
hard.
on so thick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Smooth Data was hilarious. There were so many ways he played this and this that I think, he made this story work because he did make a lot of comical choices. Um, for example, he comes in, he's like, "Hi, honey, I'm home," and he does the whole Ricky Ricardo thing, right? So that's a trope.
Mm-hmm.
Then she does this whole thing. She's like, "Oh, hi, baby," and she blows a kiss at him, and the kiss that he blows back had me rolling. It's so awkward. He's like, "Oh, that's what we're doing. We're blowing kisses." And so he does like this weird, like he does a fantastically awkward kiss, blow back to her, and I thought that's hilarious.
Yeah, the line that he said that killed me, he says, "It seems your quarters have returned to their earlier state of disorder." Like, we've all had that conversation before.
Yeah, yeah, messy. He said it was. He said she has an aversion to orderliness. That was the line that he said to her at the bar with Keiko
Beautiful.
and Miles.
Beautiful.
And I loved, by the way, also Keiko and Miles. Seeing Keiko in general, we
Me
don't get
too.
much of her, but to see them also as a couple, I felt was great because we don't get to see them on date night or out as a couple as much. So watching Keiko go on about Miles leaving a pile of, it's not a meter high, it wasn't half a meter, or whatever.
Oh, she's exaggerating.
Yeah, those were great. So I love that moment because, and then he kind of put on a face like, all right, sure, this is roast me time. I get it. So I like those slice of life moments, and to see Keiko and O'Brien, that was another little treat in this episode.
Yeah, it's really nice. That little foreshadowing that we get into Deep Space Nine. They didn't know it was foreshadowing at the time, but we see it. We're like, oh, there's the happy couple getting ready to be a happy couple. Another
Yeah,
great, it was right after the aversion to orderliness line. Uh, when Data says, and a very good job I did of it too. And he does like this, like everything to him is a program of like, here's what I
yeah,
learned. Let me just play. This is my
yeah.
time for the banter with the pals. A very good job I did of it too.
Yes,
I loved it all.
yeah, yeah. He hit a bunch of comedic notes in this. He says a moment. He says, that is not true. I have no human feelings. Like the way he was delivering those lines, when he needed to be dry and unaware, he was very good at that too, right? So like, don't look at me when Guinan says, "Don't look at me," and he kind of looks away. He does that beat, He did another beat later on with Picard around. I don't know if I wrote it here in my notes, but he did another beat. Uh, just comedic moments where he decided, I'm going to take the comedic way here, and like I said earlier, Picard, or I mean Patrick Stewart, must have been encouraging that. He was like, yeah, yeah, more of that. That's good. We'll play it like that. Um, and so Brent Spiner got a chance to really have fun with this. I felt he was playing with it.
And I'm glad he did, because he's such an extremely talented actor. And episodes like this, I think, really demonstrate his level of talent. That he just gives us a tiny little hint of something, but it means so much, and it gives us so much to work with. He just gives like a little wink, or a "I understand," or or a pause, and we're just like, "Oh my God, Data!" We're with him the whole way. We know what he's thinking. We know what he's feeling. We're
Mm-hmm.
rooting for him. We're
Mm-hmm.
laughing with him. We're going, "Oh!" When she breaks up with him, he's like, "Are you saying we are no longer a couple?" And she's like, "No, we are not." And he says, "Then I will delete the appropriate program." And it's so like cold and robotic, but we feel like there's just a tiny little hint there of sadness, of like, okay, I guess it's over. Then I'll tear up your phone number.
Yeah, and he kept saying, he said, "Now, if you're ready to eat dinner, I will go and bring." And he was like, "Data,
Yeah.
you're getting broken up with.
You're getting dumped,
there's
bro.
there's no dinner happening, bro. You can't read the room, man. It's it's
Yeah.
over."
Speaking of the room, everybody, we're almost out of time. So we got to go over some people in just a moment that we want to thank. But before we do that, everybody knows it is time for the home run of today's episode. Sirach Lofton, who gets the home run of today's episode?
Well, as much as I'd like to give it to Patrick Stewart for his directorial debut, I can't see myself not giving it to Brent Spiner for carrying this episode. He made me laugh a few times really loudly. I had to rewind things. I was writing stuff down. I loved this episode. There was also a moment there she leaned in for the kiss on him, and he went right back to doing his work as if it's like okay. So yeah, I'm gonna say the home run goes to Brent Spiner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way as you. As much as I'd love to say, oh, Picard's directorial debut, Patrick Stewart, you get it. I can't in good conscience forget about what Mr. Spiner did, which was an incredible performance and a very charming and heartfelt and hilarious performance. So yeah, easy home run of the day for Mr. Brent Spiner. And now the aforementioned people, or the afore alluded to people. Thank you to Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, who makes great gingerbread men, Yvette Blackman Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Moeller, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anil O. Palat, Joe
Palat.
Balsarati, Mike Goo, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, live from Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manosfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Tim Baum, aka Grandpa One, Chris Stern at the Wine Guy, Greg K. Wickstrom out in Hawaii, and of course, Jason Oken and Chris Garris. All right, that is it for us, everybody. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. And please go visit us on patreon.com/the7th-rule to support the show and become a part of the fun. We'll see you next time. Here comes the free-for-all. We'll be right back on the 7th Rule. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Seventh Rule. This is the free-for-all. Finally, of course, Sirach Lofton is here, joined by Melissa Longo, Jason M. Oken, Chris Garris, the pride of Corpus Christi, Texas, Faith Howell on the bridge of the Enterprise D, Dr. Muhammad Noor all the way from Duke University eating chili and cauliflower and stuff. Mai is live in Tokyo, early morning hours for her. Carrie Schwent is floating in space. Allison Leach Hyde is preparing for a big game. Scott Jensen is finally here wearing a cool skateboard shirt. I always think of you when I see skateboarding stuff, by the way. Cool, like Powell, Peralta, like old school stuff, you know?
Oh, man,
And
that's my favorite.
is it? Awesome. And the Dark Lord, of course, Chris McGee's like, you guys are talking about skateboard boring stuff. All right. Jake Cisco guesses the IMDb score.
Let's see. In theory, I'm going to say it's around 7.6.
Does it? Anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know? Muhammad's thinking. He went like this. This is his thinking face.
I think it's 7.3. I don't know. 7.3 is a guess.
0.1.
I go 7.2.
Yeah. Well, that's 7.
6.5.
Whoa.
Rude.
That's not what I would rate it, but I'm guessing the internet would rate it.
Where's Sue? Where's Sue?
All right. The correct answer is, I think somebody said it. Mai, did you say 7.1?
Oh, 6.1.
Oh, then you're wrong. It is a 7.1. I thought you said it. 6.1. Ouch. All right.
Okay.
Non-appearance mentions. I did not catch any, although Sirach was anticipating a Tasha Yar non-appearance mention.
Yeah.
No? What about some kind of or some sort of? Chris McGee?
Also not here today.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Melissa Longo, please get us started off on the right track and let us know what you thought of this hilarious, beautiful, and wonderful episode that should be rated higher than 7.1.
It should be rated R. No, I'm just kidding.
Rated R. I like that.
I found this episode to be quite humorous, actually, and frustrating. Frustrating and humorous. For several different reasons, and I'll talk about mostly the A story, and that's obviously the romance. And I think it's interesting. What's frustrating is that Data puts himself in a box and is put in a box by other people, and in that he's like, well, I don't have emotions, I can't feel anything, I can't do this and I can't do that. When it makes me wonder what his drive to become more human stems from, or where it stems from, because that, I mean, he's got huge capacity for curiosity, and curiosity is an emotion. It's not the same kind of emotion as love or fear or anger, but he's definitely got curiosity, and he's definitely kind to other people. What drives that kind of action? And he's definitely thoughtful. So where does that stem from? So I think that I don't know, that I think we put him in a narrow box, and this complicates relationships even more. In that, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts about this episode, which is going to surpass 90 seconds. So I will just say, save the rest for things left unsaid. But it's interesting because I do have so many thoughts on this episode, so many questions, and I don't know, maybe we need to broaden our own minds as to what constitutes emotion and feelings.
Excellent points. Thank you very much, Melissa Longo. Muhammad also said excellent point, Melissa. So that's two of us. Jason M. Oken, is here. He's ready to tell us what he thinks of this episode.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's a lovely attempt at an emotional story that kind of falls a little short. It looks like the B story, or is it really the A story? Hijacks the entire episode, sort of toward the end of Act 4, and certainly it kind of almost goes off the rails in Act 5. It actually was hard to even read the script as to how much technobabble and whatever else they crammed in there. There are absolutely many lovely moments in it. But they do get kind of drowned out by the technobabble and by this obligatory jeopardy that they need to put the ship in. I mean, there's still a lot to enjoy here. I mean, the performances are wonderful. I mean, Brent is great. His choices are very, very creative. Michelle Scarabelli does a wonderful job as well as the guest star, which is not an easy thing to do in this situation. I think in the end, it's directed pretty well by Patrick. I know his first turn, but it did look lovely. It wasn't the most complicated of episodes to direct, but I think it's very well done, and we have Whoopi even for one scene. Which is terrific. Again, there's a lot to say here. It's basically it kind of fails at what Data's day succeeds. It kind of falls short in that sense because you really are thrown off by this sort of sci-fi technobabble story where the focus should really have stayed on the romance. And I'll talk more about that later. Some of that got lost, frankly, probably in the cutting. It looks like they filmed some more and they cut it. But we'll talk about that later.
Wow, Jason Oken. I thought you'd like it more than that. Good stuff. We'll stick around for Things Left Unsaid to hear more on that. Chris Garris, what's up with you? How you been? What'd you think of this one?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I think I had a little bit of mixed emotions as well because I don't think I've actually seen this episode since it premiered back in '91, probably. And I know I had no idea what the hell it was talking about. It explores the complexities of love, emotions, and relationships through Data's eyes. And then Jenna begins developing her feelings for him. And, he tries to reciprocate, by initiating the relationship. But because he lacks the emotions, he approaches the relationship analytically. And then he goes and consults the crew members for advice, which was a great idea in his part. At least Geordi realized he needed to not tell him anything. He quickly said, don't talk to me. Go talk to somebody else. Now, I did get a laugh when he was talking to Worf. And Worf lets him know that he would be very displeased if Jenna was to get hurt. And I've got then once he's done with all that, he writes a program and gives her own specific route, a subroutine specifically for her. But he's unable to pick up the subtleties that are inherent with a relationship. Like a good example was when she stops by his quarters to bring him that gift, and he goes back to painting. And she says, tells him he can do that basically. And he didn't realize she wanted him to actually just stop and spend time with her. But he's Data. He takes everything literally. Even like when she said the cat's out of the bag, he's like, spots out. And I think probably for me, all of this, like you said, the romance became the focus of this whole episode. And when he goes back to her quarters and like doing their dinner stuff, I think I counted about 5 times he switched between like programs because he comes in with that, he comes in initially, hi, how's your day? Basically, then he turns into Casanova style, trying to, gets the wine and sits down and all that stuff. And then he gets back up, wants to clean her room, pick up all of her clothes. So, and then he starts a level quarrel. And, that's just when she realizes he's really incapable of having true relationship and emotions. And she also realizes, and it's kind of harsh when it ends. He's like, okay, I'll delete the program. I'm like, damn, Data. He's like, delete. So, and then one thing I will add here, then we'll leave anything else for later on, is I did get a laugh when Picard tells Riker he's going to pilot the shuttle. And, You know, that is a little bit out of the norm. Hey, but when you're the director of the episode, you get to do what you want. Too bad, Will. You're sitting on the bridge.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too. Right? Like,
oh,
why?
it's not. He shouldn't have done that, but you know, he's the boss that week, so he got to do what he wanted. Hell, do you do?
Better pilot than Riker? I never heard of that. They always say Riker's the best. Anyway,
that's true. But yeah, I'll leave anything else for later, but because I have more.
Thanks very much, Chris Garris. Good stuff as always. Faith Howell is on the bridge of the Enterprise D. She's the ensign of the week. We have a different ensign every week. It's her every week here.
I'm wearing red. Oh no.
Yeah. What'd you think of this one?
Honestly, love hate. I mean, I love anything with Data, right? But this one is at times painful to watch. Definitely, I think, to bounce off of an earlier comment, the only thing that would have made this worse was Tasha Yar reference in a my girlfriend kind of way, my ex-girlfriend conversation added to this would be the only thing that could have made it worse. So, but yeah, otherwise, I think honestly, this episode does what it set out to do in my mind by reminding us that Data is not as well-rounded and human as we like to think he is sometimes. The way he behaves is because of his programming, because of the way he was designed to be curious, to learn more, to grow. He does all of these things. It's us that is anthropomorphizing and putting the humanity onto him the way that we do, because he does seem like, honestly, the most human of all of our characters in a lot of ways. But we do that. We project that feeling onto him that you have no basis for he is actually feeling. He's just behaving in ways that he's programmed to do to assimilate and be able to work with other characters. So very interesting episode. Not one of my favorites, but definitely a fun one to come back to now and again.
Well, it's one of your top 100 episodes, maybe, of Next Generation.
Yes, that is true.
Thank you very much, Faith Howell. Excellent stuff. Dr. Mohammed Noor is here, and we're so glad that he is. What do you think of this one?
Thanks for having me. It was fun. I mean, I agree with everything everybody said. I'm going to riff a little bit off of especially Faith's comments most recently there too. When I first watched the episode, which was just over the weekend, I was thinking like, God, like his programming sucks. That he's this bad at trying to emulate it. I was thinking like, well, this was written in the 80s or 90s. Maybe it was written in one of those programming languages from back then, like BASIC or Fortran or something like that. but then, this morning, though, it was interesting. I was listening to the Nature magazine podcast, and they were talking about like revolutions in AI and what would be needed for AI to get to the next level. And part of it, what they were saying in the most recent podcast, and this is based on a study that was just published, is that for AI to get better, it needs to be more self-directed. Because presently, what AI does is just uses everything, and it kind of averages it out, and that's what it uses. But if it can be more self-directed and choose its own adventure, it'll do better. And that kind of makes sense in this sense. Because imagine if you take, like, let's say all the TV shows out there, and you think about what happens in relationships. What you're going to think is like, oh yeah, the way relationships work is like a guy and a woman start like hitting each other and all of a sudden they're kissing. And like, yeah, that's never happened to me in my life. I don't know about you guys, but that's not usually how it goes down. But it makes sense though, that like, if you just take the average of everything that's out there, that's what you get. Whereas if you can be more selective of, okay, this is good data and this is crap data, then it would make more sense. So I guess he's a first generation AI in that sense. He has not gotten more selective, but I enjoyed it. It was, not the best TNG episode, but it was entertaining. He held my attention. So I'll pass the baton.
He is both good data and crap data in the same episode. Thank you very much, Dr. Noor. Mai is live in Tokyo. I'm very curious about that background. What say you on this episode?
I think just kudos to Mohammed for that. That was wow, self-selecting. I like that for AI. I'm going to think about that and do some research on that. I like that point a lot. Jenna de Sora. Sora means sky in Japanese, and the apostrophe Sora would be of the sky. So I thought it was a cool name for somebody in a Star Trek show. Jenna of the Sky. That was kind of neat. My thoughts are that after many moons on this particular rock, that sometimes kindness is just kindness and nothing more. So maybe she read a little bit more into it than she needed to. She badly wanted to be in love. she massively misinterpreted Data's kindness, but that's something we see all the time in real life. I've been guilty of it a billion times in my life. I'm sure we all have. The initial advice that Data got from the men and women he asked was right down stereotypical lines, though. And I thought, not particularly 2024 in that respect. I mean, where were the soulless women? Where were the feeling men? It was, a little bit stereotypical. Even Jenna was acting like a smitten kitten from a 1960s movie. The breakup again was stereotypical, with the woman getting bummed and the guy not really giving a rat's patootie. I thought it might have been better if Data had adopted a lover personality from a different culture, other than human, that had different stereotypes and fun. That Desora maybe took Worf's advice and adopted Klingon cultural norms, for example. Something just, let's get it different. Let's make it weird. As it was, I found it a little too formulaic, too known, too repetitive of what we've seen in a gazillion movies. And that leads me to the opinion that the script was lazy. And in my opinion, not remotely worthy of Ronald D. Moore. I thought pretty much par for the course for season 4, though. I did take a moment to do an analysis using the same scale used in U.S. schools of that 60 to 70, 70 to 80, 80, 90, 90 to 100 for DCBA. And you average all the scores out from IMDb, and this season gets a low C. It's at like 71%. So a barely passing episode. I got to say, this episode's just, I think, another data point telling us that it was been a tough school year for the kids at TNG High this year. So that was my take. 6.1.
Thanks very much. My live in Tokyo. Carrie Schwent hanging out in a nebula. What's up, Crafty Bear? What'd you think of this one?
I love this one, of course. I'm a sucker for anything purple, so I dug that the nebula was purple, so I gotta have my own purple nebula and my purple Melissa shirt that I got at one of the recent convention. I enjoyed both the A and B plots, and according to Memory Alpha, apparently both Ron Moore and Braga didn't really enjoy the idea that they had to wedge in the B plot. I liked it, I think, a little bit more than they did, although I think it probably could have punched up the scary a little bit, because poor Lieutenant sticking half up out of the floor, just looking at that just gives you the willies. And if you look close enough, there's like a little bit of blood. So yeah, the screaming was, something happened there. Poor thing. But then again, I like my horror movies, so that is where that comes from. But definitely the best part of the A plot was Data going around asking for advice, just like Wesley did in season 2 in the Dauphin, going to pretty much all the same people. Worf and Riker were absolutely the funniest, especially Riker's big ass grin, leaning back, foot up on the conference table, just absolutely makes me laugh. Geordi shows serious growth at telling Data that I'm not the person to ask. Go find somebody who gives better advice. So good for Geordi. Deanna gets the gold star with the advice, telling him to be careful, because she has human feelings, and despite your best efforts, she might misunderstand. So telling him to tread lightly was definitely a good thing. And Picard, when Data gets onto the bridge and Data starts to talk, and Picard's like, nope, turns around, tries to get the heck out of there before Data can even finish his sentence. But later on, part of the B plot that I did like was Worf in Picard's ready room when they're trying to figure out why his stuff is suddenly on the floor, and Worf immediately wants to go to Red Alert because something's happened. They can't figure out how anybody got in his room. He immediately wants to go to Red Alert so he can shoot something, because we know Worf likes to shoot things. Now, as a cat mom, I can definitely tell you that cats know when their people are in distress. Even Data, he doesn't. I've said it before. He doesn't have emotions like we do, but he does still have them, and cats can tell that sort of thing. So he jumps up into Data's lap at the end and Data starts petting him, as we all do when a cat that wants to curl up in our lap, and we need that bit of comfort. And yeah, of course, Spot is very pretty, although he might look different next time we see him. There were many different cats that played Spock, and I liked all of them. We got just a cute moment with Miles and Keiko, with Keiko throwing Miles firmly under the runabout, complaining about the piles and piles of socks. Miles, pick up your socks. Come on, be a grown up and pick up your socks. But I enjoyed the actress that played Jenna. And looking up her IMDb, it reminded me she's only in 4 episodes of it, but the Superman and Lois show on the CW that just finished, she plays Martha Kent in 4 episodes, fairly early on in like the first season of that show. She's excellent in that. She's still looks just as beautiful, has aged very, very nicely, very gracefully. And for the limerick for the episode, naturally had to come from Miss Jenna. So I will finish with that. She's throwing herself a little pity party. Why do I do this again and again? It's too bad Data can't do more than pretend. Sure, he did the best he could. I wish that he understood. On my own might be better in the end.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear. All right, Allison Leach Hyde, #1 Packers fan. What do you think of this one?
I guess I'm of 2 minds of this one, like most of us. There are bits that I really like, and there are bits where I'm like, ooh, that's a little cringy. Like smooth talking Data was like the worst thing in the entire episode for me. Just like, no, like don't do that. Don't talk like that. Your voice changed. No. Super creepy. But I loved the idea of Jenna kind of using, sadly, Data as a safe space to go.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't truly hurt him, but she could figure out how to have a relationship she wanted. So that scene where she comes to bring him the gift and she's like, go back to your painting. And then he does. And she's like, actually, you know what? That's not what I meant. That's not what I need. And she said that out loud. And I thought that was really great that she did that. So she's learning how to have a relationship after being in a relationship that did not go the way she wanted. We've all been in them. And we've all also had a friend where like, oh no, I'm starting to be attracted to this person again. You have to tell me why I don't want this. So I liked that scene with Data and Jenna. I thought that was really cute and sweet. I am always happy to see Whoopi because anytime her face is on the screen, you're just drawn in. But I did get distracted when she listed off the ingredients in the drink and said Targ milk. I lost it after that. I'm like, oh, no. No, Klingon dog milk. No, thank you. I would not. Thanks. It felt a little bit like we're truly in the 90s. All the women's hair looks super early 90s with the pretty French braid and the big bangs. So I definitely noticed that. Always happy to see Keiko. And I love that both she and O'Brien are musicians. Because I always kind of wondered, like, how did you two get together? And both have a love of music. I like that. It was probably added later, I understand, but I liked that they added that. So I thought it was nice to have something for their relationship to like, hey, we both like to do this. I always thought we should get more O'Brien playing cello. We needed that in Deep Space Nine. I thought it would have been great. And love that Spot went on a full-on walkabout when the poltergeist was going around the ship, opening doors, throwing things off tables, and Spot completely took his chance and went on a walkabout. I'm like, yeah, any cat owner knows that if that door is open, they will go. Unless you have a cat like I did at one time that was scared of the sky. So she wasn't going to go far. So, yeah. Were there cringy points? Yes, they're definitely cringy points. Have we maybe progressed a little bit in how we see relationships? A little. But, this was the 90s and they were basing this off of all the fan letters that women who were like, I could change Spock, I could make him show emotions, and that's where they got the idea for this episode. I can see why we have what we have. I think Patrick Stewart did a lovely job directing for his first directorial debut. I thought it was great. And you're lucky if you get Spiner for your first episode, because he always works hard and turns out wonderful work. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in this episode.
Great stuff. Remind me of this meme I saw where there's like a cat on the transporter pad. It says, beam me down. And then he's down. He says, beam me back up. And he's back up. And then beam me back down. Because you know how cats are. All right. Scott Jensen, a.k.a. Guldu Scott, the return of the #1 New Jersey Devils fan. What do you think of this one?
It did. I want to kind of go back to what I can glean from what Jason said. It did feel like it was two very separate stories. If somebody would have told me later on that it was meant to be two separate episodes that kind of just got mashed together, like Scenes from Italian Restaurant, the Billy Joel song, it's like they didn't have full ideas to just stick it together and made it work, I would have probably believed that. I did like the advice bits from everybody. I thought it was cool. Just little glimpses of all their characters and the way they would react. Of course, I 100% would like to say that I identify the most with Worf, but I'm probably most identify with Geordi in that situation. But the whole time I was watching this, up to the specific part, I did not remember any of this at all. Probably because the last time I watched it was back in the 90s when I was, a teenager or whatever, and just didn't care about Data downloading the subroutine from the Honeymooners, and that's pretty much what he went with. But I caught and I realized what I was watching when I saw that lieutenant is stuck in the floor, because that is like a core memory that is like burned into my just entire psyche. Like I was looking for the collector's card that I have it somewhere where she's just sitting like that. But I was actually talking to our buddy, our People's Champion, Dave Gregory, about an hour ago. We were texting back and forth talking about the episode. And I asked him, I was like, he couldn't make it tonight. And I was like, is there anything, that you might want to, have me pass along? And he said that back when this hit, he had written into the nitpicker guide because he had a perfect nitpick of this episode. And this is 100% Dave right here. When they turn the corner and they find her stuck in the ground like that, why is she facing them? She just walked away and was going to the turbo lift. Why is she spun back around? I know it's for the visual technically, and because it's a beautiful shot to turn around and see her like that, in this Greek pose on the ground. I don't know who walks like that either, but and you have time to scream when the bulkhead cuts your lungs in half. But yeah, and he said that he wrote it in and it got published. So our boy Dave has been on top of stuff forever. I thought that was really cool. And I'll commend them for not taking the extra mile of doing the Game of Thrones thing and like combining the two stories by having her killed by the antimatter and then having Data feel sad that she died or something like that. But so I commend that, and also that she just didn't just in front of him when they turned the corner too, because that would have been pretty gnarly. But
that's great stuff, Scott Jensen.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that too. I also wondered, like, if she died while screaming, why was she just like chilling like this? Like, you would think that she'd be like, frozen like that. That was kind of a weird thing. Thank you very much, Guldu Scott. All right, Dark Lord Chris McGee, what's up? What do you got for us? What do you think of this one?
Well, first, I apologize for my nasally voice. I am fighting a cold, but I didn't want to break my perfect attendance record, so here I am. I would probably call this an average episode. It isn't bad by any means, but nor is it amazing, in my opinion. I think it sits squarely in the middle. I agree with Jason and Scott that the two stories in this episode couldn't be more dissimilar. Even in an episode like Galaxy's Child, which had two stories, at least they did intermingle a bit, towards the end. Not so here. That's not to say I didn't like the A-plot. I do appreciate the idea of seeing what would happen if an unemotional AI were to seek a romantic relationship. And the result is pretty much what we would expect. I would characterize the attempt like trying to build a house only by looking at a picture of a house. While an AI could certainly approximate the appearance of a relationship, it won't get very far without emotion, as Jenna discovered. That said, I think both Data and Jenna contributed to this, disaster, I guess you could call it, neither of which have to do with Data's lack of emotions. On Jenna's side, I think she was simply on a rebound and mistook the gestures of friendship on Data as gestures of romantic interest. On Data's side, I think he should have listened more to Troy's advice that Jenna likes him for who he is. Just continue being himself and see if that's enough for Jenna, rather than alter his programming for her. And we saw what happened when he did that. A more modern take on this idea is the Spike Jonze movie, Her, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson, where the roles are reversed. The man falls in love with his AI voice assistant. Full disclosure, I haven't watched this movie yet, but I've heard a lot about it, so I intend to watch it this weekend. I'll give you my report later on. Last, but certainly not least, I have to give this episode the freakiest death award. Like Carrie and Scott, the sight of Lieutenant Van Mater fused with the corridor deck disturbs me every time I see it. Finding a memorable quote in this episode wasn't easy, so I'll just go with the one that, for whatever reason, is stuck in my brain all these years, and that is Picard in the shuttlecraft going out of control saying, "Now would be a good time, Mr. O'Brien."
Yes. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Dark Lord Chris McGee. Thank you for braving the illness for us. Sirach Lofton is here, and he's ready for Jake's final take. Any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, as I kind of let the episode sit with me, I think about this episode being really about two people who are vulnerable and slightly insecure. And I think Data's insecurities are about fitting in and appearing to be human-like. And that's why he was seeking so much advice. He was insecure, and so was she because of her vulnerability coming out of a relationship. So I think that was kind of the meeting point for the two of them. I still think it's a little cringy how Riker was just super predatory about taking advantage of her at that moment. Like, no, it's totally cool. You do it. I think it could have been a little bit more adult and softer about that. Number 3 was, I didn't hear anybody ask Data if that's what he wanted. Do you want to be with her? And I thought Troy could have said that to her, because he was asking, should I be with her? She's into me. Should I entertain it? But it wasn't really like, well, what do you want, Data? Like, do you want to be with her? Or do you want to be with somebody? Are you looking for a relationship? Like, those kinds of questions never really came up. It was more like, it was a should I do this, but not do you want to do this? The other thing was, I thought Worf got shot down one more time in this episode when he's like, red alert, we should go to red alert. And Picard's like, no, chill out. We're just going to do this. We're just going to be, cautionary, but slow down, Worf. So another shot down, Worf, another moment where Worf gets shot down. I would also say, I wish somebody encouraged Data to be himself and didn't say, download all these programs and do the I Love Lucy or whatever, honey, I'm home and all that stuff. That would have been some of the best advice that you could have given him. Just be yourself, Data. If she likes you for who you are, then she already likes you for who you are. So don't change that trying to fit in. I think he could have served himself a lot better with that advice. Wasn't really happy with the dark matter explanation. And I know it was relatively early in the dark matter sciences, and we've kind of evolved on what we think about that. And we've got all kinds of, particle colliders to find God particles since that. And so our understanding of dark matter, black holes, these kinds of concepts has really changed to some degree. I don't think it would cause the kind of anomalies that we saw in this episode. Stacking up chairs in an office. That's not what dark matter is going to be doing. So I wish that was a better explanation about what they perceived dark matter to be at that time. It would have given us a marker to see how far we've come in the sciences of things. And then the last thing for me is I wanted that photon torpedo. I don't know where I would put it in my house. Maybe like make a coffee table out of it or like something. But I wanted I want a photon torpedo. It looked really cool. And so when they were working on that, I was thinking, those guys building the set and doing all those props, they must be having fun. Like, yo, build me a photon torpedo. Like, that's every kid's dream, right? So, like, I get to build one for real in a shop. That would be great. So, yeah, I enjoyed that aspect of it. Wasn't really like blown away by any of the director decisions that I thought Picard made. It was really rather, average, like the episodes, to be honest with you. But he didn't make any terrible blunders so it wasn't terrible as far as things I saw, but it wasn't stand out. I didn't see anything that enhanced the storyline or made it move along faster. In fact, I wish the tempo was picked up slightly and some of the dialogue could have been picked up a little bit. But overall, Brent Spiner's a fantastic actor, and when you give him a chance to do comedy, he loves that a lot, and that's evident here. He's like a comedian hiding behind a serious guy. And every once in a while, he shows you that comedic side of his personality in this character, which I always enjoy. So that's why I thought it was an enjoyable episode and probably one I'd watch again.
Mm-hmm. All right, you heard it, everybody. Next week, reviewing this one again. So stay tuned for that. This is going to be fun. Thank you very much to Chris McGee, Scott Jensen, Allison Leach Hyde, Carrie Schwent, my live in Tokyo, Dr. Mohammed Noor at work, Faith Howell, Chris Garris, Jason Oak, and Melissa Longo. For myself, Sirach Loft and Melissa Longo, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us. We hope to see you again. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.